Morning Answer continues next. AM 560 Weather Center forecast with our meteorologist Steve Williams.
Sunny skies and a chilly day. High today 44. Clear to partly cloudy tonight. Cold low 30. A sunny day tomorrow. The high 54. Some rain on Thursday morning. The high Thursday 49. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560. The Answer.
Clouds and 34 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and I'm digging these montages that President Trump is using in the closing rallies for this campaign season. The one in several ones, actually, that I saw in Waukesha, Wisconsin over the weekend. He added one in Pennsylvania yesterday, Joe Biden on China and trade deals. Also, again, given the unrest and the violence in San Bernardino and Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, after police-involved shootings, this should be included in the campaign rallies to come. Remember this exchange between Addie Barkan, who's a leftist activist, and Joe Biden. And now Addie Barkan has ALS. That's why his voice is modulated. But this was the exchange, if you remember.
Instead of sending 2 police officers with deadly weapons to that Wendy's drive-thru in Atlanta, we could have sent a wellness counselor and a tow truck, and then Ray's Hard Brooks would still be alive today. And his 3 daughters would still have their daddy. Are you open to that kind of reform?
Yes, I propose that kind of reform. We need significantly more help. That's why I call for significant increase in funding for mental health clinics and mental health providers. We are desperately in need of that now. One of the things I've been pushing for in our administration, we put together the ability in a bill that I wrote to make sure that we can look at pattern and practice of police departments, go in and get all the records and find out what they're doing.
So the question was, instead of police responding in the Rayshard Brooks case, send social workers or mental health professionals, and Joe Biden said yes. And this is the same Joe Biden that when he's on a debate stage says, no, I'm not for defunding police, or I'm not for reimagining police, which is the euphemism for defunding police. And, of course, the press corps just grabs onto that, says, look, I asked him the question. He said, no, that's the end of the discussion. It doesn't matter what he said 5 minutes ago. And that's the same on China. That's the same on trade deals. That's the same on fracking and energy policy. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. And, by the way, it's not just conservatives like me saying it. It's also Matt Taibbi, who makes statements against interests. His columns over the last couple of months have all been statements against interests. He is a man of the left. But he writes about the Hunter Biden story in the context of assessing the media. The flow of information in the United States has become so politicized, bottlenecked by an increasingly brazen union of corporate press and tech platforms, that it's become impossible for American audiences to see news about certain topics absent thickets of propagandistic contextualizing. And he uses the Hunter Biden as an example. He Googled Biden Ukraine billion aid, and all you get is fact check, what really happened, and the White House perspective, and so on and so forth. He makes the point, other true information has been scrubbed or deranked either by platforms or by a confederation of press outlets whose loyalty to the Democratic Party far now overshadows its obligations to inform. And he goes on to say, as to where things stand with this story a week out. And by the way, Tony Bobulinski scheduled for a long-form interview with Tucker Carlson on his show tonight. Taibbi writes, editors have been telling charges that any effort to determine whether or not the Biden laptop material is true or to ask the Biden campaign to confirm or deny the story will either not be allowed or put through heightened fact-checking procedures. On the other hand, if you want to assert without any evidence at all that the New York Post story is Russian interference, you can essentially go straight to print. For more on all of this, plus the closing argument, we're pleased to be joined again by Hogan Gidley. He's the National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign. Hogan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.
So let's talk about the Hunter Biden story with the Bobulinski interview tonight, and with continued stories by Peter Schweitzer at the Post, as well as the other reporters who've been on this story, and the ability to get this out and present it in such a way that people get the gist of it before Tuesday to inform their vote. Yes, maybe 40% of people will have voted early, but that means 60% will have not.
Yeah, look, I just think anytime you can shed light on what had occurred that was so egregious against this president, it is important, whether that be spying on his campaign, whether that be the Russia collusion hoax, and the fact that the media ran with that without evidence or without corroboration for 3 years, and now are clutching their pearls on this other issue as it relates to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And I want to be clear, this isn't about Hunter. It's about Joe. What did Joe know, and when did he know it? And the fact is, he said many times he had no idea about Hunter Biden's business dealings. And now we have someone going on the record, putting their face to this, not in print, but on camera, saying Joe Biden was part of this. He discussed these things. He had to give advice on these things, and he even signed off on some of these things. That's a serious allegation. It's a serious problem for the Joe Biden campaign. At the very least, it proves Joe Biden's been lying, that he didn't have any knowledge of Hunter Biden's business dealings. And that, to me, goes right to the core of what Joe Biden's been trying to sell to the American people, which at this point, I just don't see them buying it.
Do you think the American people care, though, or do they have fatigue of all of this?
I do think they care because, look, it's not about drawing a Russian name over to a Ukrainian name and then back to an oligarch of some kind, then over to a lobbying firm, then into Delaware. It's about corruption. And give it to Joe Biden, he learned from the best. I mean, he is close to the Clintons. But that notwithstanding, I mean, people care about government officials using their titles, using their network as a taxpayer-funded office holder to rake in millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's a problem for a lot of folks. And the electorate is always leery of voting for someone when they're surprised. And the media has done everything they could to try and make Joe Biden just your nice old uncle who's a good guy, who's really calm, and he never says anything mean about anybody. Forget the fact that, he said that Mitt Romney, milquetoast Mitt Romney, was going to put African Americans in chains. Forget that for a moment.
Oh my gosh,
forget the nasty things he said in the past. It's going to come across as pretty shocking to a lot of folks to hear that the mainstream media has been telling us Joe Biden's such a nice guy, only to find out he's corrupt as the day is long.
I just watched the film, The Plot Against the President, that was directed by Amanda Milius, who is the daughter of the great Hollywood screenwriter John Milius, Apocalypse Now, Red Dawn. I think he directed Red Dawn, actually, not the screenwriter there. But I got to tell you, it's. I mean, I know this stuff because I follow it every day for the last 10 years. But the details provided by those who spoke on the record, like Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan, about what happened during that 3 years of the Russian collusion hoax, the investigations, and the subterfuge, and arguably the various attempted coups, it is just so stunning. I can understand why when President Trump wants to talk about it, and I can understand why he is so indignant and offended by it. He's offended on behalf of the American people of what their government was capable of trying to do to undermine the legitimacy of our government. And I just wonder. I know when he talks about it, it comes across like he's crying about his treatment, and so he doesn't want to be there with the closing argument, which needs to be about the future, not the past. Totally understand that and agree with that. But boy, in a second term, there really needs to be a reckoning in FBI, in CIA, in the upper reaches of the intelligence apparatus in the federal government that just hasn't been visited upon individuals who need to feel that reckoning yet. Don't you think?
Look, I think the president has drained the swamp, no question about that. But there's still a few things lurking around down there in that wet mud, and they don't want to give up that power. And it's been pretty obvious for a long time that there are people all throughout this government. I mean, federal government has millions and millions of employees that are hell bent on trying to stifle this duly elected president's agenda. There are people there who have gone after this president. I mean, but just think about, you just hit on something I think is important. Had he not been elected, we'd never know the names of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. We wouldn't know about Brennan and Clapper and Comey and all their cabal. We wouldn't know that. Now we do. He's got to get reelected, as you just said, for that purpose. There's still a lot of work to be done inside the federal government to root out a lot of this corruption and a lot of this behavior. And Donald Trump can do it. We've seen him already start to kind of peel away at this onion. And even though it continues to stink, and even though everyone's eyes are watering, he keeps going because he wants to make sure the American people have the power, not these folks in these back rooms and in these cigar-filled lounges trying to cut deals and make decisions on behalf of the American people when they don't have to abide by the very rules they themselves are advocating for or passing into law.
Well, and as an addendum to that, we need to get the Durham investigation complete. We need to see what that produces. And, I mean, God only knows if he doesn't win, we may not see that happen.
No, 100%. What's the motivation? Who's out there saying in the press? Who's out there claiming we need to get it done, if not the President of the United States? Otherwise, they'll just go back to doing what they do and building their little fiefdoms and shortchanging the American people in the process. And that's unacceptable. And that's one of the reasons the president really did, go all in and trying to make sure that what was hidden by the darkness was exposed by the light. And the American people are better off for it, because we now know if the FBI can weaponize an entire branch, even though it's just a few bad actors at the top, if they can weaponize an entire branch to attack, a candidate for president, then a president of the United States, just think what they can do to you if somehow you get crossways with somebody. So I think he's done a lot to further democracy. I think he's done a lot to further transparency. And Democrats are always accusing Republicans of something they themselves are guilty of actually doing. So first it was, you guys are colluding with Russia, but it's actually the Democrats who had the Russian dossier. You guys want to move the election date, but it's you guys who are suing in 15 states to allow votes to come in after Election Day. You guys won't concede the election when it's Hillary Clinton telling Joe Biden, wait a minute, don't you dare concede on Election Day. Don't do it. It's the Democrats saying you guys are inciting violence when it's Eric Holder saying when they go low, we kick them. It's Kamala Harris saying these things are going to keep happening all across the country, these riots and this looting. It's Maxine Waters saying you get in their faces, you don't let them eat, you make a disruption, you cause a scene. So it's time and time again this happens, and this is a great example. They think, or they try to claim, that we're the ones orchestrating these things from the government when it's actually Democrats who have this entire system rigged in the favor of the elite and of the powerful. That's why the president continues to run as an outsider, because he's not part of this. He's part of America, and I think that's very telling.
I wonder, too, you've got so many binary choices, right? Law and order versus the lawlessness. Lockdowns versus sensible reopening of schools and businesses and learning to live with the virus, as President Trump said in the debate on Thursday night, which is the only real choice, the only choice that exists in the real world, not the utopia that Joe Biden and the Democrat socialists are painting. How do you tie it all up? I mean, it seems to me, you just mentioned they are who they say Trump and Republicans are. And so for all their talk about trumping the bully, this is a party that wants to bully you in every single aspect of your life, starting with whether or not you can even walk outside your front door. And then it just ramps up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're hearing these folks saying we can't reopen the country. Joe Biden saying we have to lock it back down again. look, I know the health ramifications. We now know what we're dealing with a lot better now than we did in January of coronavirus is an example. It's tragic. It's gut-wrenching what's happened in this country. But in addition to the medical issues that occur from the virus, death and other things, I mean, the economic issues and the lasting impact of that is crippling to a nation that predicates itself upon being free and open and capitalistic in its very nature. People have saved up their whole life's work to open up a business. It's gone. People have sold everything they had just to try and make ends meet in this time because jobs aren't there like they used to be. Now, we're on a V-shaped economy recovery here because the president has brought in more jobs, 11 plus million in the last 4 months than we've ever seen in a 4-month period in the history of our country. But Joe Biden is literally telling the American people he's going to shut it back down. We have to find a way to live with this. And I know that it's tough, and I know that we have to continue the masks and the social distancing and all those things, but you can't shut down the country again. Even the health experts, Fauci and Birx and Hahn, Redfield, they're all saying you probably shouldn't shut down the country again. The health ramifications of just anxiety, depression, suicides, what it's doing to our children, many of whom in the lower income bracket are hurt exorbitantly worse because they're not getting an education. They're not getting 3 square meals a day. And also abuse is
in the next week should really be hitting that home hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's for that. Joe Biden isn't. And I think the difference is clear. And so when we're looking at the future of this country, we know we're going to have to face this down. We know we're going to have to succeed. The president's put all the mechanisms in place to get through this, to get around this. We're about to get therapeutics online in a big way. A vaccine is coming. Joe Biden has already been on the record, he and both Kamala Harris, talking about being anti-vaxxers in essence. They're against the whole thing. That's problematic for a lot of reasons. And, it's just damaging to the country. So we've got to keep moving forward in the right direction. The president can do it. Joe Biden just can't.
What's the campaign's perspective on where Trump stands as we talk today? Is he up? Is he down? And if he's down, what do you think is the way he closes, either with messaging or with the campaign infrastructure that's been built, or some combination of the two?
Well, first of all, I hope you've been watching some of these rallies because it's pretty clear he's up. He's pretty excited. He's enthusiastic about where we are. The American people are as well. To watch, kind of the band back together and him out doing his thing, and the people excited about our future again, listening to this president, thanking him for what he's been able to accomplish on their behalf, setting success of improvement for all Americans, regardless of race, religion, color, or creed, is something we can run on and something Joe Biden can't. We can point to the fact that this president's done more in 47 months to improve the lives of all Americans than Joe Biden has in 47 years. He can't point backwards, Joe Biden, because everything he did do destroyed jobs all over this country. And he can't point to something he wants to do because then he's talking about ending the energy industry, killing 10.5 million jobs from a sector that keeps this country and this world going. It would put us in a seriously difficult financial crunch because you'd be raising prices again on gasoline, raising prices on fuel for automobiles, and also heating and cooling your home. And then you'd be beholden to foreign countries again. We're a net exporter of energy for the first time in decades, and that means we're not beholden to the whims of China and Russia and the Middle East on prices for oil and gas. And now Joe Biden wants to take us back and get rid of the whole industry? I mean, that's just dangerous on many levels. And so that's the message we're driving home from now until Election Day, is that if you want 4 more years of peace and prosperity, safety, success, law and order, I mean, that's Donald Trump, no question about it. Joe Biden can't do it, and he can't because he hasn't in the past. And
there was a great line from Richard Grinnell at the rally in Waukesha, Wisconsin on Saturday night, where he said, who here thinks that Joe Biden was saving all his good ideas for year 48? I love that.
It's a great line.
Hogan Gidley, National Press Secretary
line.
you can feel free to use it. I'm sure Richard Grinnell would let you use it.
I love Richard. And look, what he's asking you to do, Joe Biden's asking you to believe all of a sudden now I'm going to start working for you.
Yeah.
It's like starting
just
now.
getting warmed up. It took him 47 years to get warmed up.
Probationary period.
Half
Hogan,
of a century.
Hogan Gidley, National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign. Hogan, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line. Coming up on Chicago's Morning Answer, back to COVID we go.
Dr. Roger Klein, former head of molecular oncology at the Cleveland Clinic at 7:37.
And who's saying no? Who is standing up to Governor Pritzker? Now let's head into the newsroom. Here is Mike Scott. Good morning, Mike.
Amy and Dan, good morning. Chilly. We've had light snow, 34 degrees. Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett getting right to work. The day after being confirmed in the Senate and sworn in at the White House, Barrett will be at the court to take the judicial oath administered by Chief Justice